What's going on, my people? Welcome back to Israel's Movie Reviews. And today we're going to be discussing a movie that I just finished watching, a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it's called Civil War, starring Kirsten Dunst. This movie, I remember the first time I watched the trailer, I thought that it would be a movie that showed a bunch of basically militias, militaries, or politicians trying to come up with some strategy, right, to fight each other, and basically had a lead character in Kirsten Dunst that would lead the film just to fight either one of two sides, right? I wasn't sure because the trailer is pretty vague in that way. And pretty much I thought she would play a key role in a war and that finally, won or what you have it. But I was completely wrong. This movie to me was a masterpiece. This is a taste of war and the experience that shows you the cruelty of the reality we live in, which is real war. And it's very direct. It doesn't confuse you with big talks and politics and powers that be and conflicts and in that nature. Instead, it puts you in a position that makes you very vulnerable, especially to the eye, witnessing what's going on. And it kind of scares you for what's ahead of us in the future. Although this is a movie, and I'm gonna get back to this later on, but it's slightly fictional because there was a lot of real concepts here that, don't want to scare anybody, but possibly can happen one day. God forbid. And this movie definitely gives you an experience rather than telling you. It shows you this intriguing story, which I'm not going to spoil for you because I definitely do want you to go see this movie. This movie, to me, was a masterpiece about war, about people, about journalism. And Kirsten Dunst, man, was phenomenal in this movie. The discourse around this film, for me, was truly fascinating because I think it's incredible to read this from time to time after watching a movie. The trailers were I don't think the trailers really did this movie any justice, This is a character-driven story, but in the most tense way possible. Anything can happen in any moment with this film. During the film, it left me speechless many times. That was the main constant of the film. Have to stress that you have these God-like moments. You have to see this on the big screen because trust me, your palate will be filled by the time this movie was over. It's one of the most immersive films I've seen. It pulled me out of what I go for in a movie. Usually I go for a movie not to critique it, although I do come on here and I talk about the movie without being, too spoilery. And I go there for escapism. But this movie, man, it pulls you out of the escapism. It kind of scares you. There's a second there where I love Carnage Candy, but when it came to this film, the blood is so realistic. The tension around the film, it just gives you that gut. And you're like, wow. I should have honestly hated this movie, but I loved it because it has some truly wild universal implications. It's not just limited to the United States. It takes you basically around. And, I had a long time to process the film. I've seen the film about almost a week now. And I understand that there's many, I think, reactions around the globe. And it's not like anything I've seen before. Honestly, this movie is I think it's going to do well in the box office just because people are acceptable. Now they're open to what's going on, what they see, how the news is implicated nowadays. And, one might say that this movie was empty, which it wasn't. This movie was pretty meta in all sense of the word. What I think it will say in a lot of reviews or even critics is that it's just a rearview mirror of how we see the world and how the world really is. Like I said before, this movie it's an anti-war film. It's about journalism. It's a spectacle. A lack of context might annoy people, and because this is a movie that's opposed to American exceptionalism, if I could put it that way. It renders this war zone like any other country, any war film, for most American viewers that have little idea of the opposing parties or the actors involved. But this is it's just one of those movies you got to see, man. You know, every gunshot is loud as hell. Um, every explosion is a bit far too much sometimes. Uh, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a spectacle." Yes, and people ask to what end. I find it radical. You know, one can make up 5 different backstories of how Texas, California are seceded separately, and then allied against the president who's a fascist. And I don't want to get too technical, but this movie definitely is iconic, provocative. Yeah, it has this iconic setting that you're gonna be in awe of. You know, to me, the performances is what made the movie. Kirsten Dunst, man, it's phenomenal. She's the whole ass movie, honestly. We've literally never seen a film like this before from her. Damn, the range that she gives, it's unbelievable. It's Oscar worthy. One doesn't doubt her as Lee, her character who plays this veteran war photographer. And for a moment, even though she barely says anything, it's saying a lot of how she's amongst her best work in the film. Hell, it's one of the best performances I think of the last 10 years, maybe the decade, right? The whole movie plays out through her reactions, and tonally she's pitched in a perfectly well-mannered way, you know? And then you add Wagner Moura, who's equally brilliant. It could be reasonably considered as this co-lead. The depiction of war journalists throughout shows, throughout movies, are usually different, right? But this one was like so precise. The bizarre adrenaline fueling addiction that it seems to require to be a journalist, she nailed that. I don't know what was her prep for this movie or how long it took her to actually prep and get this together, but she did just a phenomenal job, you know. And you know, kudos to the director, Alex Garland, man. He, to make such a film that eventually he knew was going to be open to criticism. He knew people were going to say it was empty. People say it was going to be lacking in political stance because the film doesn't go either one way or the other. He knows people will find it intriguing, bombastic, and because we're thrown into this deep end, no amount of character, I believe, shading the performances will prevent people from saying things like these characters were not layered the right way, they were thin. But Lee, Joel, and Sammy, the ones pretty much that are in the movie, are razor sharp. You know, Jesse, played by Spaney, is the real puzzle. She's the real enigma of the story. And I think for the director, this setting was the only vehicle in which way he could given it to us. And I liked it so much, man. I kept thinking with every second, I would say that it's exploitative, but this movie doesn't allow any feel-good moments, really. You know, it's dark, terrifying. This is sheer dread and despair of war. There's no questioning that the film is this anti-war fiction thing going on. No, it costs and feels very palpable, and the aesthetic of the film and the strong emotion that it elicits, all clearly intended for more than enough for me to run with. I would have definitely been annoyed if it had been too definitive. This is an anti-war film, anti-exceptionalism, like I mentioned before, about the nature of truth-telling when it comes to war. And I call this movie a masterpiece. I think you should definitely go see this. Just get prepared. Your anxiety level is gonna go through the roof, you know? It's definitely Alex Garland's, I think, standout, most powerful film. He definitely made a statement with this, brilliantly capturing the humanizing effects of conflict without falling into the trap of excess gore and violence. This is an easy watch. It's a stark portrayal of the psychological and emotional impact that hits hard for us at home. This was gripping, very intense, and very authentic. And, you know, for the most part, without me spoiling anything more, go check this film out. I gave this movie an 8.5. Go check it out. Let me Let me know what you think in the Discord. To the next one, man. Deuces.